Well, greetings. Time for another BW3 podcast, produced and distributed by Swino Visuals. I'm Kevin Stubblefield. It is December, and we've got breaking news, as Kenny Wallace says, not in the garage area, but in the podcast studio this morning.
Yeah, we're headed to the Dome, so pretty excited about that. Of course, we said Kyle was going. I got the invite too. In fact, I even told our guest yesterday, I'm like, no, I'm not going. And, but it's a lot of money to win and a lot of money to start and the most prestigious race in dirt late model racing and maybe in short track racing. I still think Snowball Derby is always going to be bigger to me, but, so I'm excited, to go and, I don't have any expectations because I'll just say this publicly. I absolutely suck on rough cowboy up racetracks. So I was hoping I drew Thursday night because it's always smooth and slick, and we're pretty good in that. Now we get, hopefully they reverse it this year. That's what I'm I don't know, we need to go talk to track prep guys or whatever, but like hide the damn water truck keys because I hate rough, but we're going. So looking forward to it. A lot of people, 120,000 people in 3 days. So it's kind of
Have you raced there before?
Nope. Here's what happens to every one of us dirt late model guys every year. And I guess we need to formally introduce our guest. I'll let you introduce our guest, and I'm going to ask him this question so we don't get off track. But we got a pretty cool guest in the studio today.
Absolutely. Randall Chupp is our guest from Cleveland, Tennessee. He is a well-known name in the sport of racing, and great to have you today, sir.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Proud to be here.
Randall, have you been to the Dome?
I have not.
I didn't think you had.
Okay.
Randall's got this. So Randall's raced for years. If you know racing, you know Randall Chupp. So Randall was originally just coming to help Kyle, and now he's going to have to babysit me too. But here's what happens. You're like, I'm not going to that little bitty racetrack and bouncing through holes and tearing up my race car. And then you get looking what it pays to win. Then you get looking to what it pays to start. Then you realize you're 2 hours from there. In my case, you realize your hauler and all your equipment and everybody you got is going there anyways, and you're going to be there anyways. So what happens is every time you get watching that race and you're 2 or 3 beers deep and you're like, I should have been out there doing that. And so anyway, I feel like it's something you got to do one time. And, but it's changed. Jonathan Davenport says, they're going to focus on it, get a car to focus on it. So he don't like rough racetracks either. So what would you do?
Well, I think you left out one part. I think TJ and them had some leverage on bending your arm yesterday.
But they were like, you're not taking this brand new car, and I'm like, you're right, I'm not. And then they're like, I was giving them so much crap. I'm like, wait a minute. And then they're like, you're not going? I'm like, no, we're not taking a brand new car to the Dome. Well, it's got one race on it. Yeah, it does. And we thought Steffens was taking. I'm like, you think I'm going to let some random person drive a new car to the Dome? No, I won't take a new car to the Dome, but it's been broken in, so we'll go. I know you would have went because I
love it.
I know you would have raced because you're on the gas.
I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is not my. Randall may say I'm wrong, but I don't really think it's my driving style. But it is what it is, and we're gonna have some fun. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, we always have a great time for sure.
Yep,
run good most of the time.
Yep. So Randall's our guest today. Excited to have him on. My gosh, he's won 5 National 100. How many times did you win the National 100?
In total, counting everything, it adds up to like 6 national titles through National 100, Dirt Track World Championship, Bush Championship, all that.
Jeez.
Coolest news I hadn't told you this week, not by leaving you out, but I was telling you about the Hall of Fame. Me and my dad got on the inductee roll for the Hall of Fame. I got the call Sunday morning early that there was 18 of us going for 4 spots, and me and Dad both made the cut. Both.
That's awesome. That's the Alabama
International Motorsports Hall of Fame.
That's at Talladega,
It's
right?
at Talladega Super Speedway out front, and it's underwritten by the Alabama Auto Racing Pioneers.
That's awesome.
That sounds like big time to me.
That is. You're in the Dirt Late Model Hall of Fame too.
No,
right?
I'm not. My dad is.
Your dad is.
Yep.
Well, he's going in. So
I appreciate that.
It will happen. So I do have a couple. I want to hear. A lot of people my age will remember this story, but I want to hear your Golden Isles story because Joey Walsh is a good friend of mine. And I remember Joey Walsh, I think Tigger was there that day too. And I remember hearing this story. And I remember, man, Dirt on Dirt had just got started. And I remember reading the Dirt on Dirt article. Never heard of Golden Isles in my life. But now it's like a very famous racetrack. But talk about, was that 2009 Golden Isles, that race?
Yeah, well, the Super Bowl of Dirt consists of 3 events. So 3 complete different shows. And the first night and the second night, you're accumulating points towards how you're starting on Saturday night's main event. And I'd only been there once before. And, you know, Golden Isles is a great grounds for seeing a lot of talent because all the Lucas Oil guys and World Outlaws guys convene there every year for the Super Bowl of Dirt. And so the first night, I qualified second to Scott Bloomquist and wound up finishing second in the main event to Scott that night. And throughout the night in the main event, he had raced there like 12 years consecutively or something. But I paid attention close and learned lessons while running close to him. The second night, and like I said, I run second. Scott won the first night. The second night of the event, I set fast time overall and won my heat race. Chris Madden set second fast time and finished second won his heat race. So we started on the front row together, and he wound up winning, and I ran second. And Chris was another one that had been there like 12 years in a row. So again, I had a great night of learning under people who had been there a lot since that was just at that point my 3rd time ever being there. And on Saturday night, we broke a track record for fast time, and then they invert like 6 cars in the heat. And I got run over on the start in the first turn and tore up quite a bit of cosmetics. Nothing serious about the car, just some cosmetics. And we were leading the points accumulation for the week, so that guaranteed me a spot into the show on Saturday night. So we basically skipped the B main, C main stuff just to work longer on the car, and Joey was part of the team that day, and they all put in tremendous work ethic and got that thing turned around back in tip-top shape for the A main. We took a provisional to start 24th in the A main, and I think if you review the video, it's a funny couple of things about it. Early in the race, I was talking to myself because sometimes I was guilty of having a fast car and pushing it too hard and pushing myself into tire issues late in the races or something. So in this race, I was determined to like get it right, you know, because I knew I had a fast enough car to win. I'd just run second 2 nights in a row to 2 really good drivers. I'd learned those lessons from them, so I thought it was time to apply it. And I remember driving out on the track going, all right, Randall, whatever you do, just don't overdrive this thing and don't blow the tires out too early. You can't win if you don't finish, and keep the fenders straight. I was having a little pep talk with myself, you know. And the green drops and the race is going really easy for me, and I'm not pushing it hard at all, I don't think. I'm being super patient, I'm thinking. And caution comes out on lap 12 or 13 or something, and there's lap cars in the mix and leaders in the mix. You know how it gets sometimes. You don't really know where you're at.
Right.
Well, when they start stringing us all out to get a single file, the cars kept disappearing in front of me, and they give us the one to go, and I look around the side of them up through there, and I go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow, this being patience working out pretty good, man. Yeah. I need to stick with this patience stuff.
Right.
But literally, I'd passed like 19 cars in about 8 or 10 laps. And like I said, I wasn't really driving crazy, I didn't think, or overdoing it at all, but I was making really strong headway. And at that point, right before it went green, I smiled real big because I knew if I could just keep it together, it was going to be a long night for these guys, you know what I mean? Well, about 5 laps later, I was in the lead, and then I think we lapped up to 3rd that night.
Wow.
It was a really great night, and, you know, I was so proud to win that race for Mr. Jack Starrett of Augusta, Georgia, the guy that owned everything. He ran a company called Starrett Sand and Gravel. He was about 80 years old or so, but he loved racing, and he'd never really had his cars out traveling to the bigger events. But what made that race really special for me to win for him was his wife had just passed away about 2 weeks previous. Mm. And we contemplated not even going. And I told Jack, I said, Jack, we need to go to this race because I feel like I can win it for you. I said, I know nothing's going to bring back your wife. I said, but, we can at least get you a little good vibe out of doing good in a big race in your local area, And we just won the Blue Gray 100 at Gaffney to close the season out.
Wow.
And that's a tough race to win, So I knew we had our stuff going good. But anyway, we was lucky enough to win that race for Mr. Jack. And I dedicated the win to his wife. And he was super emotional about it. And it was just a very special race to win for him, knowing what he was going through mentally. And the sad part of it is we was getting geared up and hoping to run some more spring big races, maybe Speed Week some and stuff. And he fell off of a 992 loader the next week at work and died.
Oh my God! Wow. Well, he went out on top.
Yep, definitely did, and I was proud to be able to do it for him. He's a fine man.
That was I remember that, hearing about that race. Maybe I don't know. It may have been, I don't even know if pay-per-view is an option. I remember reading it on Dirt on Dirt. And that was right when Dirt on Dirt really covered Speed Weeks and did all that. And that's how you found out. Like I said, I'd never heard of Golden Isles. You're down in Southeast. You probably never heard of I-44 Speedway or Springfield. Just
same thing.
Same thing. It's just your area. And but man, there's a lot of good racetracks. You grew up racing like Atomic and Bulls Gap, and I mean, we're talking I-44 banking, half mile, high bank. I mean, more than I-44 banking, really, like Atomic and Bulls Gap, just crazy banking.
Tazewell especially.
Yeah, I forget about that one. That one was on
basically 45-degree banking at the top of the racetrack.
That was on a video game, R Factor, or I think it was R Factor or Dirt Racing 1 or 2, some video game. And it was insane, like how much banking that thing had.
It is absolutely insane, and it's so small because it's like, I'd say it's just probably a quarter mile or maybe just, it's right near a quarter mile.
You'll get you
run it in
there.
like 10 seconds.
Golly. Springfield, that's what I tell everybody, of all the dirt tracks I've been to, the hardest racetrack on your body in a dirt car is Springfield.
I believe
you're G-loaded the whole time. And you're never get a break, it feels like. You're always in the corner. And like, you go race Turkey Bowl week and you test for 3 nights and you're like, about the second night, you're like, man, my neck's kind of sore. Like, this is like pavement racing, but pretty wild there. So you've been to every racetrack in the world, it seems like, and been around. So you won a Busch Championship 2000. Where I remember your team the most from non-dirt related, you guys got on a run 02 with Bobby Hamilton Jr. Like a run. And I'm going to be Dale Jr. here. Was there we got statute of limitations are gone. What loophole, did you find a loophole that was really good, or did you just hit on something?
No, I'll be honest with you. We were dominating Busch. When we won the Busch Championship with the Nestle Quick PPC team, Greg Pollock's on the team, we won the points championship by the largest margin in the history of any championship that NASCAR's ever had, counting trucks, Busch, Cup, all of it. And I had to attribute it to basically one heavy-handed thing. In that era of car design and NASCAR was when they had all the miscellaneous single-held templates.
Right.
Well, Harold Hawley, my buddy I grew up with from 14 years old all the way up, and we're still great friends and talk weekly now. He was an absolute master of the rule book in NASCAR. And I mean, I'm being serious, a heart attack, and this sounds odd, but anybody that knew the sport or knew what I'm saying, he had all the top Cup affiliated owned Busch programs so outsmarted with how to do things inside the template box. We were building far superior cars to Penske, Joe Gibbs cars, Hendrick cars, all of them. And all you got to do is look in that era of time to prove it.
Right.
We were pounding those guys.
Yeah.
And you look at pictures of our cars on the track, and our car looked like a top fuel car going down the straightaway at Charlotte. And in that era of time, jokingly, but I'm being serious, a Roush car or a Hendrick car looked like a canoe going down the racetrack. Because they had the front valences 5 or 6 inches in there at the flag stand, and The rear was blown down, you know.
You were sealed off.
If you watched Harold's car, it was an inch off the ground all the way around the front, and the rear wasn't a quarter inch below ride height when you went through the tech area. So it literally looked like a top fuel funny car compared to a bunch of taxi cabs.
Right.
But it was totally legal. But that car is a lot of the reason why they had to start doing all the different template changes and dropping the whole grid template down at one time.
That. So you were the single template, and then they come up with the claw after that.
Yes.
All right.
But I give Harold more credit than that. Not only did we do everything in-house, we were a non-Cup affiliated team.
Right.
So we didn't get any ideas from the Cup side of the garage guys. And Harold created every one of them chassis. Our short track cars, drop snout cars, our intermediate cars, our road course cars, our speedway cars. Every chassis we had was individually built specifically for what its job was. Every body template matrix was maximized differently to max out what we needed for the various uses. And Harold was just so incredibly on top of his game. And he's such a super hard-nosed competitive competitor. He don't leave any stone unturned with any step of racing. And I've thoroughly enjoyed all my lifetime we're messing with Harold. But, you know, you asked me what was the dominant. It wasn't nothing trick or illegal. It was just Harold outsmarting guys. We had one engineer at the shop. And when Penske and people like that would go testing simultaneous with us, like at Chicago, I remember going there testing one day with Harold. And we had like a little fold-out table and one laptop running data acquisition. And it was pretty intimidating when I looked over my shoulder for the first time and I realized what Harold was really fighting. Ryan Newman was there in the all-tail Bush car, and they had probably 14 engineers with laptops running off one car. And they had like 9 motors lined up down the garage stall, and they was going to test and tune all 9 of them engines for Chicago. Long story short, after the test was over, we was the fastest car there with just our one motor and one car and one guy running all the data. And then we went back for the race and absolutely just destroyed them guys. And at that point in time, I had to step back and be real and go, we got a lot of things working for us because we got a great cast of guys and a great driver and everything we need. But Harold Holley's a very special person.
Right.
It's unarguable.
Yep. He was... Man, I remember watching those cars, and I'm not throwing Bobby Hamilton Jr. under the bus either. Like, he had some good runs in the Cup Series, but like didn't win a race before then. Pretty sure he didn't win a race after that. Like they got on a little run there that, you know, Jeff Green won a lot of races, and that was, you know, they went out and they dominated. But then the next year you see this Marines car, and it's just killing them, you know, and that was, they got on a run, and I remember that I'd have been like 20, 21, and it was very noticeable what was going on. So it was pretty cool. 25 years later, you know, sitting back going, wait a minute, you know, you were part of that one.
You want to know something to add to that? So when PPC started withdrawing because we lost the Nestle Quick sponsorship due to the terrorist attacks on 9/11, so we wound up working a deal out to move over with Ed Renzi and them to run the Marines team. So it was a very short period of time, and the season had already started, I'm pretty sure. So we jumped in there, and we only had time to build like a car or two. And then we won like 5 races with the first 2 cars we built. And then I don't know what all went on behind the scenes and stuff, but I was tied to Harold. And when Harold came and went, I went with Harold, whatever he was doing, and I just stuck with him. And then we wasn't there very long, but in the history of the Marines supporter racing, which goes years and years and years and years, that's the only 5 races they ever won. Wow. And I'm proud me and Harold was able to help the Marines get that accomplished.
Ed Renzi's the name. So listen to Kenny Conversation. Ed owned the largest amount of McDonald's there was. Big car owner back in the day. I think he still has a little bit of stuff going on with racing, but not much.
He was anymore. The CEO of McDonald's, I'm
that's
pretty
right.
sure.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly what he was. So he had it going on, and they had a pretty good team.
Super nice fella, too. I enjoyed working for him.
So we got this door behind us, and everybody knows Larry Phillips. And Randall's I know we were all at Wheatland, and I'm gonna let Randall tell his story. So, we were talking with Billy Moyer at Wheatland, and it was the Spring Nationals last year. We're all visiting, and somehow Larry Phillips gets brought up, and this door made me think of it. So I want to hear you tell this story because the world needs to hear this about Larry and Scott Bloomquist to Show Me 100.
Well, you put me in a pretty hard spot to tell that story.
It can be completely unedited. It's Larry Phillips and Scott Bloomquist. Like you can't. There's the two biggest names there was.
Well, I was just making sure it's a family
it's all good.
situation, but Larry was a little truthful, I'd say. You know,
you might have to beat colorful. The F-bomb, but you can put everything else in there. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I was crew chiefing for Jack Boggs at the time, and we was at West Plains, Missouri. And we didn't get to race against Larry a lot, but Larry won all the time. So when we did visit around, we always knew to watch out for Larry. And he's dangerous, really dangerous about trying to beat him and win a race because he won so many, and his legend was long. He's cast a long shadow over racing, You know what I mean? I respect him and his son Terry tremendously. But at this point in time, you know, Scott was the young gun. Everybody was talking about unstoppable and everything else. And the guys I worked with never bowed down to him or felt that way. Jack Boggs, Freddie Smith, and Ronnie Johnson and them. But most everybody else pretty much, when Scott showed up, they almost felt like they was racing for second. But one I can definitely add to the list that didn't feel like he was racing for second when Scott showed up was that fella right there.
Yeah.
Larry was a hard individual on the racetrack, and I love that kind of guy, and I love racing that kind of guy because you know what you're dealing with, and it won't change. So at least you ain't somebody that's one way 1 minute and one way the next.
That's right.
And I really appreciate that. But anyway, it's a fuel stop time at West Plains, Missouri, and at the time we was all running alcohol, so we couldn't run a 100-lap race on one load of fuel. So scheduled 50-lap fuel stop, and I'm, of course, putting fuel in Jack's car, and we're running second at the time in the race. Scott's leading the race, but Larry had started like 19th, and he had made his way to third. And they were, you know, announcing during the drivers getting out of the car and stuff, all the action had been going on, and Scott heard the part about Larry had come from 19th to third, and with him leading, of course, you know, being nosy, he got the best of him, so he thought he'd waddle over to Scott's right rear tire and start, you know, get him.
Scott went to Larry's, right?
Yes, Scott went over to Larry's car. Yeah. Larry was down in the edge of the pits working on his helmet with a crew guy. Another guy was by his car, and Scott's big, tall guy, you know, and he waddles over there to Larry's right rear tire, and he's feeling of it. And I'm just pouring gas in Jack's car. I'm focused on trying to win the race myself. We're second, you know. Me and Jack's talking, and all of a sudden I'm starting to hear in the background, "Hey, hippie." And I'm like, I don't know who they're talking to, you know. "Hey, hippie." It gets a little louder, you know. About the third time he said it, he was barking it out pretty good. And I realized he was talking about Scott. And Scott also, about the same time I realized he was talking about Scott, Scott realized he was talking about him. So he looks up over the right rear of his car towards Larry down there at the edge of the pits. And Larry goes, "You feeling of the wrong thing." And Scott's like kind of bumfuzzled and looks over and he's like, he said, "You need to be feeling these, not that. They ain't got nothing to do with that. It's these. Come over here and get you a feel of these." And I'll just leave it to your imagination what he was talking to. But you talking about dying. Me and Jack Boggs and all the other guys in the area that caught on to it late that it was going on and everything. Because, you know.
Only Larry Phillips could put Scott in his place.
I was going to say.
That's Larry.
Scott was the guy that, like, put himself on a real high pedestal, and he belonged on a really high pedestal. So I'm fine with that. But believe me, Larry Phillips didn't give him an inch of a pedestal to stand on, not even a quarter of an inch to pedestal to stand on. And it was literally one of the funniest things I ever seen because for once in my life, Scott was speechless. He didn't have a clue what to say to or nothing else, and he basically just walked off and never looked back at Larry or act like everything was said or nothing. But
So who won the race?
Absolutely hilarious.
I don't remember. Did Moyer?
I'd be lying if I told you.
If it was the first one, it was Moyer.
Might have been Moyer or Wendell.
Yeah.
Seems like Wendell was running about fifth when the fuel stop happened. And if you hadn't have said nothing about Billy, I would have probably said Wendell.
Wendell was so good there. Here's what's crazy about that era. That's 93 to 95 time frame. Larry would race, wasn't racing dirt. He was racing here. He's racing I-44 weekly. So he'd go over there to Show Me 100 because it's, Larry, we all could learn a lot from Larry. And I think Randall probably did the same thing. Larry raced for money. And if it didn't make sense, Larry didn't go. Well, you're racing for $150,000 at Lebanon and Bolivar to win the national championship.
And getting it.
You're not going to go out on the road, but it was $40,000 to go win the Show Me 100 at an hour from your house, hour and a half from your house, and you can slip off over there and make it. So he did. And, but man, he was running Terry's backup car. That's what's impressive.
It was also like 80 to 100 car count cars, and with them racing part time, he was out there battling for the win. Yeah. Just like always.
On a limited, the crazy part of that is I didn't even know Larry was even racing dirt at that time. We all grew up. You only know what you know, and you're in this little circle, and you're just focused on pavement racing. And then you find out Larry went and won some big dirt race, and you're like, he's doing it all, and that's, to me, and I know we're getting ready to wrap this up, but I think you've got the same opinion I do. I think if you want to be a great race car driver, to me, the greatest race car drivers of all time, Larry Moore, Jeff Purvis, Larry Phillips, they've all done the same thing. They've raced on both.
Tony Stewart. Lots of their
guys. Yes. Kyle Larson's.
Not leaving nobody off.
No, but yes, Kyle Larson's a great, the modern day example to me is Kyle Larson. And you see some guys trying to go back and forth. Bubba Pollard tries to race a lot of dirt now. Carson Hocevar's racing the Dome this weekend, raced asphalt, ran second or third, in that big race down at the Bigley at the Freedom Factory. So, it's a lot going on. And, at this day and age, to race both because, man, the cars are so different. And you've been a part of our racing both this year. It's crazy how much different the cars are and how much the pavement technology's changed too, as well as the dirt. But I got one last question I know we got to go and stay in our time slot here. Dirt late model racing right now, I feel like, is bigger than it's ever been at a national level. We all agree with that. TV numbers, attendance, we're getting ready to go race in front of 120,000 people.
That's insane, it?
Really is. And a million on TV probably, and like the crazy part to me is the Snowball Derby's this weekend, and the Dome is on top of the Snowball Derby.
Still,
and they don't care. The TV rating, which it won't matter because it's the actual Snowball's on Sunday, but still it hurts the ratings for Snowball, Friday and Saturday night. But do you think we need to make changes to the car? We all saw Garrett Alberson's throwback car, and everybody thinks it's the coolest thing they've ever seen because it looks like a car from 1995. I think I want to ask your opinion on this too, because I think you'll agree with me. If we all went out and we just had to qualify, I think our cars by ourselves, one car at a time, our cars probably look like Garrett Alberson's because you don't need all the drag. You don't need air. Your aero, you need that. Those cars are aerodynamic to go fast for one lap by themselves. What do you think dirt late model racing needs to change to make the racing better?
Well, if you've noticed the trend through the years, it's like aero balance and the car's getting tight and shoving across the racetrack when you get too close to the car in front of you. This is a unique point of view, and I haven't shared it with many people, but since I had so much experience running the highest bank, fastest corner speed cars that run in America at Tazewell, Bulls Gap, Atomic Speedway through various rule changes on bodies, I think we're guilty of creating our own dramas a little bit, because if you look at the nose piece like Garrett Albertson come up with, it's steep, way out long on the end. And then as we've made them more like racers want to make them look, they went more back towards a wedge-shaped nose that's just tapered all the way to the ground.
Right.
Well, if that was a spoiler on the back of the car, would it produce more downforce laid way back like a wedge nose, or stood up way forward at a bit steeper angle like the IROC nose? So, in my opinion, I've drove both. The cars of today with the big wedge noses can't get too close to the car in front of them without losing all their nose downforce. And I think it's because we've laid the noses back and got them raked so much. There's no steepness to the length of the end of the nose that could actually put leverage on the front tires. So when we get in traffic and start getting air, the front car going over the top of our car and kind of skipping any part of the nose, we don't have enough nose to balance out how much rear downforce we've got now. You know, one thing I did do that most people would probably find interested in that subject matter, I put my dirt cars in the wind tunnel for like 16 hours worth of wind tunnel testing. And we definitely noticed that, you know, the things that look cool about stretching the nose out and leaning them back, it don't necessarily build more front downforce. Everybody in racing just think it looks cooler, so they just follow that without knowing what it's doing to the numbers.
Right.
But we're gaining the rear all the time. Through the arrows of time, we've took all the steepness out of the front of the car, and we've laid the noses back, and then we've raised the back of the cars way up through chassis setup and attitude on the racetrack. So we've probably gained 1,200 pounds of rear downforce in that era of change. We've probably lost 300 or 400 pounds of front downforce in the exact same change. So when we reach traffic and it skips the nose that it's got less than it used to have, and it's more in the rear than it ever had, that's why I think the cars get so blind and won't steer.
When you see cars go off the end of the racetrack at Springfield because they get aero tight, which is a quarter-mile racetrack, that to me is eye-opening. You know, like, not saying we need to change this or change that. You can't unlearn technology, but I do think that I know a lot of people's eyes have been raised.
Oh, it could be, better.
I know there's
and it
talks.
has been better in the past is what my point is.
I agree. Yes. I think you look at, to me, and maybe it's not, maybe, you know, we looked at that, we were rained out somewhere in Illinois. I think we lived in Illinois this summer, but we were rained out somewhere and we watched the I-44 World of Outlaw race from 2005 on World of Outlaws. You can go on Dirt Vision. You can pull it up. It's 05 World of Outlaw race. Still on there. So you can go watch it. And you look at those cars and how high they were off the ground and watch them. And the racing was really, really probably better than today because the aero wasn't as, you can see the cars aren't sealed off. They're hauling the mail and the racing was just better. And that's just outsider looking in, but aero, you can't unlearn aero. The only cars that don't have a lot of aero right now are USAC midgets. And so
they race the best.
And they race the best. 100% best race of the year is the Chili Bowl.
The older cars you mentioned, they let a little more air under the car. Mm-hmm. So the following car had some air that come out from under the car in front. In today's times, though, we get these noses trimmed out to a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch off the ground and keep it that way all the way around the racetrack. So there's an absolute humongous vacuum right behind a car that if you put your nose up in that vacuum, I've driven it enough to know, people Mario Andretti or AJ Foyt, and when the steering wheel, you can just spin it in your hands and the car goes straight. It don't matter who's driving it. You're going to do what you said and run out of the racetrack.
Yep.
The steering wheel does nothing when the front tires are unloaded.
Yep. I think that's is it fixable? I don't know, but it's something that, I think you put us in a box. This is my opinion. For what it's worth, I think if you wanted to fix dirt late model racing for the better, you pick up the phone, call somebody like you call Ricky Brooks and say, hey, we want the asphalt late model template system. We want to go through the referee. Roll that thing through the referee and put the center line measurement on the car, because we all have our cars skewed. Whether, the dome this weekend, you'll see, the cool part about the dome is you're going to see cars that are not skewed as much, because it's a disadvantage to have your car skewed. You just can't get up against the wall. But if they had a box referee, just like they do on pavement, with center line measurement, it would help the racing tremendously, in my opinion. You're still going to have the car sealed off. There's nothing wrong with that. But it would help it, and it wouldn't be, if you gave everybody a year to say, hey, you got 1 year to get your car to fit in this template, then nobody's out any money. You can't make a rule change. He dealt with this in NASCAR. The big lawsuit going on right now, that was one of the things in the deposition I saw was a rule change costing teams $1.5 million per car coming out in the middle of the year. You cannot do that to us at a dirt late model team, even if it costs us $1,500. It's a lot of money. And so they got to figure that out, like how to make a rule change that goes in effect for 27 or 28 that straightens this out, not change it. Hey, you got to have your car right for speed weeks. So,
you know what else I can add to that too, Brennan? It looks kind of, I'm nobody, I don't know the laws and stuff, obviously, but I'm a racer and I understand, the racing side of things pretty well, just from being in it so many years. But the guilty looking thing to me about NASCAR's situation is when they implemented those teams spending that extra $1.5 million a year, guess who had to get all them parts from all of a sudden?
Yeah, that's right.
That is from NASCAR.
They had to get them from NASCAR. That is where. Are you following the lawsuit, Kevin, at all? Just seeing it bits and pieces here and there? Or have you followed it much the last 2 days?
Not that much. I mean, you see Michael Jordan walking in and out of the courthouse.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Where NASCAR, I think, the way I understand it can settle at any time. I think NASCAR will settle this week because I don't think when you get the teams on the stand and they get Randall Chupp on the stand and be like, yeah, we got to go buy this Olin Shocks got out of the dirt late model business because they were providing all the shocks to NASCAR, AP brakes, all the brakes, all the cup teams. You have to buy, everybody's on Olin Shocks, everybody's on AP brakes, everybody's on 5-star bodies. Great, no problem with that. Except the fact that NASCAR is getting to charge a tariff on every one of those parts. So like you said, they implemented $1.5 million rule change per team, and NASCAR's getting $200,000. Maybe not. I'm just using an arbitrary number here.
More than that, probably.
Yeah.
It's big profit margin stuff.
For NASCAR. And they're getting the profit margin. Then they're controlling the racetracks. Then they're controlling the purse. They're controlling everything.
Almost trying to devalue the teams, arguing with them about their team's value.
100%. And did NASCAR have to give them a charter? No, but I feel like that is they didn't have to, but you do to keep the sport going. And I am, I talked about it on the show last week. I'm a huge Jim France fan. I of what I knew of him from my family 30 years ago. I think Jim France can fix it, but maybe not. He may just be checked out and on his own deal. So they've got to get a way to figure that out, because if you're the judge and you're the jury, there's no way these jury of random people are not going to, you got to be at NASCAR's attorney's got to be looking at this going, hey, you're going to lose.
It's not going to look good.
They're going to lose. There's no way they win this. No way, in my opinion.
I don't think they ever thought somebody would be powerful enough to stand up against them, but when MJ walked in, I think that changed things a lot, to be honest with you.
He got FU money. And that's
definitely has whatever he needs.
And
he's been in those types of contracts too,
yes,
through his basketball stuff.
Yes.
Because he's a basketball owner,
right,
and a player.
Yep.
So he's been through the trading money and how all that works. So he's very educated at what he's doing.
The problem is you got the two most prolific lawyers in that realm going at it, and billionaires, literally, with a B, fighting with two really good lawyers. There's no good outcome of this. Hopefully it settles.
Lawyers are going to make a lot of money.
Lawyers are making money. Lawyers are making money. Well, it's Dome week, and we appreciate you coming on. We'll have to have you on back again here sometime soon, but hopefully you have fun at your first Gateway Dirt Nationals. Kyle Steffens is going to gas on it. We know that. Hopefully we don't tear it up.
You're going to be gassing on it too.
We're going to have to gas on it, which here's the deal. I will publicly tell everybody I don't want to tear my car up, and I know that I am that way, but then we all put our helmet on, and I think they say it's a production to get down the street to get to the dang racetrack, but you and I both know, I mean, how many times this year I'm like, we're not going to drive through these holes. And next thing you know, thought you were driving through the holes. I'm like, oh, it's faster that way.
Like, why are we fixing this stuff?
Yeah, why are we fixing this stuff? So we all, you put your helmet on. Like I said, I always tell everybody about Bill Fry. Bill Fry is the nicest guy I have ever met in my life. Nicest guy. In the pits, greatest person. Like, there is no better person in the world than Bill Fry without a helmet on. Whatever Bill Fry, when he would put that helmet on, he would wreck his mother to win. And he's Dirt Late Hall of Famer, one of the greatest to ever do it. And I love Bill to death. And I think he'd tell you that too. Like,
I love Bill.
Like, everybody loves Bill Fry. Man, you want to talk about just, I'm like, you're the same guy that just ran over 3 people and you're that guy? 100%.
I used to love going to races with Bill around, because it just so happened a few times I'd be getting a little irritated with somebody, but they'd cross Bill before they got to me. And I was always like, all right, let's get this stuff taken care of, and I ain't got to have nothing to do with it.
You ain't got nothing to do with it. Yeah, Fry would take care of it for everybody. He did. But Randall always told me this theory, and I swear Bill Fry lived by this. Fry's going to kill me when he hears this. But I swear this is Bill Fry's theory too. Randall Chupp says, whatever you do to me, I'm going to do it to you 10 times back. I swear that was Fry's theory too. And that's why they were successful. Both you guys were successful. They knew if I run you over and getting it back 10 times harder. And that Larry Phelps was that way.
Larry was definitely that way.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's probably the only door that's tore up on the left side. So I tell Chuck that door's tore up on the left side. Somebody's caused a hell of a wreck in front of him.
Yeah. But no, talking about that, I always kind of seemed like I watched racing a lot before I started racing. And I learned kind of by watching others, if you're one of the guys that puts up with people's shit, everybody in the pits watches that. So then all of them are like, well, I watched him. He kind of seems like he puts up with that. So the way I was really, I built my own bodies. I built my own cars. I did everything that anybody in the pits would do to build their own cars, so I knew how to fix my own shit.
You can fix it.
If you wanted to run down here and waller on me, I guarantee you Monday, we're all going to be fixing shit.
That's the way it was.
And it is the way it was. And I didn't have to do that a whole lot because of that. I like telling this story real briefly. Me and Billy Moyer, me and Scott Bloomquist, me and a dozen of them, I can tell you. We raced 15 years, 100 lap race as hard as you can. I think me and Scott touched each other's car one time each, and it was deliberate both times. He deliberately hit me once, and the very next week I busted him in the ass and deliberately hit him back. And he come over and he was madder than a mashed cat, but he was like, don't you ever touch my car again? And I guarantee you I won't never touch your car again. And I was like, well, that's going to save us both a lot of work. And I give him honor. He lived that way the rest of his life. We never touched, and nobody raced no harder than we did either.
All right.
So you can race with a lot of respect, but it takes both giving and taking. And, the smart ones figure that out because you can't win races with tore up cars.
I thought of this a lot on how I've raced, and I think I've raced to a fault too nice. And Mark Martin is kind of my who you want to be, right? And I look at Mark Martin, and 2007 Daytona 500. It goes through my head all the time. Mark Martin should have turned right, ran Kevin Harvick up the racetrack, and Mark Martin's a Daytona 500 champion, no doubt. Like, all he had to do was bump him. Like, turn right. Like, not wreck him. I'm talking just turn. Like, I think I would have done that. And I'm probably...
You're very clean.
I'm probably the cleanest. Like, if I wreck you, you've hit me. You deserve it. Like, if I wreck you, you had it coming. I don't care what anybody says. Like, when I've had enough, I'm like anybody else.
You're a very respectful driver.
Yes, too respectful. But I will say this about Mark Martin. I used to always say, man, he'd won a Cup championship. He'd won Daytona 500, all these things. And people always said that. But you know what's pretty cool about Mark Martin right now? There's a saying, Kenny Wallace puts out a deal. They had more YouTube views, more than they've ever had this last month. And the interview says, with the people's champ, Mark Martin. More people are respecting Mark Martin in 2025 and know who Mark Martin is in 2025 than they did 2015. and he had been, he last raced, I think in 2013, I think was his last race, but full time like 09, 010, 15 years ago. And Mark Martin is like a folk hero now, and his opinions matter.
Absolutely.
So I think what at first 5 years ago, I'm like, dang, Mark Martin should have freaking wrecked him. No, Mark Martin raced people the way he wanted to be raced people the right way, like Dick Trickle taught him, like Larry Phillips taught him. And Mark Martin is the most respected voice in racing right now. And I think that's pretty dang cool.
It's deserving.
Yes, it is. And it's cool to see that come full circle. So, may not win at the time. I think Jonathan, I always tell everybody, I think what helped Jonathan Davenport the most in his career was when this whole deal happened with Lance Landers and Mark Martin. Davenport's tire management since he started, when Mark Martin come around him, took off. So, I know we're way over on time, Kevin. I appreciate it. And Randall, I appreciate you coming. And
I'm proud to be here, guys.
It's going to be a fun weekend at the Dome. Enjoy your first Dome experience. Hopefully you don't have to work on too much stuff. I don't have very much spare stuff. I
was asking Tyler a bit earlier about your spare stuff.
Well, we got plastic quarter. If you mess that plastic quarter up, I thought about not even taking the spare nose because I figure that everybody's going to, if I do something real stupid, I expect you to, when I pull in the pits, go like this and point up, nose that thing in and go to the top of the trailer. So we're going to have fun. We're going to go sell T-shirts. We're going to try to make the show. And if we make the show, there'll be a big party Saturday night in St. Louis.
Yeah, I got to brag a little bit about Tyler and Will. They're busting butt at the shop trying to get it done where we can come up here and do a podcast for a few minutes. But, yeah, the guys are doing a good job at the shop. I feel like we're going to have two good hot rods over there, and we're going to do the best we can and make everybody proud.
I'm looking forward to it, Kevin. I know you'll be tuning in on TV, and see you next week.
Randall, appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Proud to be here.
Masterclass in racing, talking to this guy.
Yeah, it's been really cool. Randall and I got to work together all year this year, and it's been really fun for me, and I've learned a lot. And I knew I'd learn a lot from Randall. I knew who Randall was. So the funny part is the first time I met Randall was the MLRA tribute race, and I was half-assed nervous to talk to the guy, and now we've become buddies, and it's just like talking to your best buddy over here, but it's like, I remember being nervous to talk to him, and I'm like, man, I hope this guy don't think I'm an idiot, but it's been awesome. It's been awesome to get to work with him all year, and looking forward to what we can do together in the future.
Good luck at the Dome.
We'll need it. We'll need a lot of luck, and I expect if we make the race, or if we put on a show, I expect everybody to be in the stands screaming and drinking lots of Busch Light and having a good time.
That'll do it for the BW3 podcast, brought to you by Schaefer's Oil and presented and distributed by Swino Visuals.